The American frontier was a vast, unforgiving wilderness. For the trappers and mountain men who ventured into its depths, survival was a daily struggle against the elements. They were a different breed of men, tough, resourceful, and intimately familiar with the rhythms of the natural world. They had to be. Their lives depended on it. And of all the skills they possessed, none was more fundamental than the ability to build a shelter. A shelter was more than just a roof over their heads. It was a fortress against the cold, a refuge from the storm, and a sanctuary in a world that was often hostile and indifferent. It was the difference between life and death. The trappers of the 18th and 19th centuries were masters of improvised architecture. They could build a shelter from almost anything, using the materials at hand and the knowledge that had been passed down through generations. They knew how to read the land, how to choose the right location, and how to build a structure that would withstand the worst that nature could throw at it. This is not a story about a single survival ordeal. It is a story about a way of life, about the skills and the knowledge that allowed men to live and thrive in one of the most challenging environments on Earth. From the simple lean-to to the sturdy log cabin, these are the shelters that kept the trappers alive. These are the skills that have been all but forgotten in the modern world, but that are as relevant today as they were 200 years ago. Tools to trust, skills that last. This is Bushcraft Arsenal. Number 1, the lean-to. The lean-to is the most basic and fundamental of all survival shelters. It is a simple, elegant design that can be built quickly and easily with a minimum of tools. It is the first shelter that any aspiring woodsman should learn to build, and it was a staple of the trapper's repertoire. The lean-to is not a long-term dwelling, but it is an effective and reliable shelter for a night or two, and it can be a lifesaver in an emergency. The principle of the lean-to is simple: a single sloping roof that deflects wind and rain, with an open side that faces a fire. The fire is an integral part of the shelter, providing warmth, light, and a way to cook food. The open design of the lean-to allows the heat from the fire to radiate into the shelter, creating a surprisingly warm and comfortable living space. To build a lean-to, the first step is to find a suitable location. The ideal spot is a level piece of ground with 2 trees that are about 10 to 12 feet apart. These trees will serve as the main supports for the shelter. A long, sturdy pole, known as the ridge pole, is then laid across the 2 trees, at a height of about 4 to 5 feet. This will form the peak of the roof. A series of smaller poles are then leaned against the ridge pole at a 45-degree angle. These are the rafters, and they should be spaced about a foot apart. A layer of smaller branches and brush is then laid over the rafters, forming a thick, waterproof thatch. The final step is to build a fire in front of the shelter, about 4 to 5 feet away. The heat from the fire will reflect off the back wall of the shelter, creating a warm and cozy microclimate. The lean-to is a versatile and adaptable shelter. It can be built in any environment where there are trees and other natural materials. It can be made larger or smaller, depending on the number of people it needs to accommodate. And it can be reinforced and improved over time with the addition of walls, a floor, and a more substantial roof. It is a testament to the ingenuity of the trappers and the power of simple, elegant design. Number 2, the trapper's tilt. While the lean-to was perfect for a temporary camp, the trapper on a long-term line needed something more substantial. He needed a base camp, a home in the wilderness that he could return to again and again. For this, he often turned to the trapper's tilt, a small, sturdy log cabin that was a significant step up from the simple lean-to. The trapper's tilt was not a fancy dwelling. It was a rough, functional shelter, built quickly and with a minimum of fuss, but it was warm, dry, and secure, and it provided a welcome refuge from the harsh realities of life on the trapline. The name Trapper's Tilt comes from the shelter's distinctive single-pitch or tilted roof. This was a simple but effective design that was much easier to build than a conventional gabled roof. The pitch was created by making the front wall of the cabin a few logs higher than the back wall. This created a gentle slope that would shed rain and snow, and it eliminated the need for any complex carpentry. The construction of a trapper's tilt was a masterclass in efficiency. The trapper would fell his own trees, usually cedar or another rot-resistant wood, and he would use them green without waiting for them to season. This made the logs easier to chop and notch. He would notch the logs on the top, a faster and less labor-intensive method than the traditional bottom notching. He would use a simple axe for all of his chopping and notching, and he would work quickly and with a minimum of wasted effort. A skilled trapper could build a trapper's tilt in a matter of days, a testament to his skill and his deep understanding of his craft. The roof of the trapper's tilt was a work of art in its own right. It was typically a sod roof made from a layer of bark, a waterproof membrane. In later years, this might be a piece of canvas or a salvaged pool liner, and a thick layer of dirt and moss. This created a heavy, well-insulated roof that was surprisingly effective at keeping out the cold and the rain. The roof would often have a generous overhang to protect the walls of the cabin from moisture. The trapper's tilt was a simple, elegant, and highly effective shelter, a perfect example of the trapper's ability to create a comfortable and secure home in the heart of the wilderness. Number 3. The Wickiu. The Wickiu is a type of brush shelter that was used by many Native American tribes, and it was quickly adopted by the trappers and mountain men who ventured into their territory. The Wickiu is a simple dome-shaped structure that is surprisingly strong and weather-resistant. It is easy to build, and it can be adapted to a wide variety of environments. It is a testament to the ingenuity of the people who developed it, and it is a powerful reminder that a comfortable and secure shelter can be built from the most basic of materials. The construction of a Wickiu begins with a frame of long, flexible poles. These poles are set in the ground in a circle, and they are bent over and tied together at the top to form a dome. The frame is then covered with a thick layer of brush, grass, or bark. The covering is applied in layers, starting at the bottom and working up, with each layer overlapping the one below it. This creates a waterproof and windproof shell that is surprisingly well insulated. The Wickiu has a number of advantages over other types of shelters. It is easy to build, and it can be erected in a matter of hours. It is also very strong, and it can withstand high winds and heavy snow loads. The dome shape of the Wickiu is inherently stable, and the flexible frame allows it to bend and flex with the wind rather than breaking. The Wickiu is also very well insulated. The thick layer of brush and grass traps a layer of dead air, which is an excellent insulator. This makes the Wickiu surprisingly warm in the winter and cool in the summer. The Wickiu was a versatile and adaptable shelter. It could be made larger or smaller, depending on the number of people it needed to accommodate. It could be built in any environment where there were trees and other natural materials, and it could be reinforced and improved over time with the addition of a smoke hole, a raised floor, and a more substantial covering. It was a simple, elegant, and highly effective shelter, a perfect example of the trapper's ability to learn from the native people and to adapt their technology to his own needs. Number 4. The half-faced camp. The half-faced camp is a simple but highly effective shelter that was a favorite of the long hunters and the early trappers of the eastern woodlands. It is a three-sided shelter with a single sloping roof and an open front that faces a large fire. The key to the half-faced camp is the fire. It is not just a source of warmth and light. It is an integral part of the shelter, a radiant heater that turns the simple structure into a warm and comfortable living space. The construction of a half-faced camp is similar to that of a lean-to. A ridgepole is laid across two trees, and a series of rafters are leaned against it. The rafters are then covered with a thick layer of bark, brush, or hides. The two sides of the shelter are then filled in with logs, rocks, or other materials, creating a three-sided structure that is open to the front, the portage. Real genius of the half-faced camp, however, lies in its relationship with the fire. The fire in a half-faced camp is not just a small cooking fire. It is a large, long fire that is designed to produce a massive amount of radiant heat. The fire is built parallel to the opening of the shelter, and it is often backed by a reflector wall of logs or rocks. This reflector wall serves two purposes. It protects the fire from the wind, and it reflects the heat from the fire back into the shelter. The result is a surprisingly warm and comfortable living space, even in the coldest of weather. The trapper could sleep soundly in his half-faced camp, with the fire warming his front and the shelter protecting his back. The half-faced camp was a simple, elegant, and highly effective shelter. It was easy to build, and it provided a warm and comfortable refuge from the elements. It was a testament to the trapper's deep understanding of fire and its properties, and it was a powerful reminder that in any survival situation, a good fire is as important as a good shelter. Number 5. The dugout. In the vast, treeless plains of the American West, the trapper had to adapt his shelter-building techniques to a new and challenging environment. There were no forests to provide logs for a cabin, no brush for a Wickiu, but there was the earth itself, and the trapper, in his infinite resourcefulness, learned to use it to his advantage. The result was the dugout, a simple earth-sheltered dwelling that was one of the most primitive and yet one of the most effective shelters in the trapper's arsenal. The dugout was exactly what its name implies. A shelter that was dug out of the side of a hill or a riverbank. The trapper would use a shovel, an axe, or even his bare hands to excavate a small chamber in the earth. He would then line the walls with rocks, logs, or sod, and he would cover the roof with a layer of poles, brush, and a thick layer of earth. The result was a dark, cramped, and often damp dwelling, but it was also a shelter that was almost completely impervious to the elements. The dugout had a number of advantages. It was incredibly well insulated. The thick layer of earth that surrounded the shelter protected it from the bitter cold of the winter and the scorching heat of the summer. It was also very well camouflaged. A well-built dugout was almost invisible from a distance, a significant advantage in a land where a trapper might not want to advertise his presence, and it was incredibly strong. A dugout could withstand the high winds and the violent storms that were common on the plains, and it was almost completely fireproof. The dugout was not a comfortable dwelling. It was often dark, damp, and poorly ventilated. But it was a shelter that was perfectly adapted to its environment. It was a testament to the trapper's ability to find a solution to any problem, to create a home in even the most inhospitable of landscapes. It was a powerful reminder that in any survival situation, the most important resource is the land itself. Number 6. The snow cave. In the high mountains of the Rockies, the trapper faced a new and formidable challenge: the deep, persistent snows of winter. In this environment, a conventional shelter was often impractical or impossible to build. But the snow itself, the very thing that made life so difficult, could also be a source of shelter. The trapper, with his deep understanding of the natural world, learned to use the snow to his advantage, to create a warm and secure refuge from the bitter cold. The result was the snow cave, one of the most ingenious and effective of all survival shelters. The snow cave is exactly what its name implies: a cave that is dug out of a deep drift of snow. The trapper would find a large, stable snowdrift, and he would begin to excavate a tunnel into its side. He would then hollow out a chamber, making sure that the entrance was lower than the sleeping platform. This was a critical design feature. Cold air is heavier than warm air, and it would sink to the bottom of the cave, while the warmer air would rise to the top, creating a surprisingly comfortable living space. The trapper would also create a small ventilation hole in the roof of the cave to allow for the exchange of fresh air. The snow cave had a number of advantages. It was incredibly well insulated. The snow itself is an excellent insulator, and a well-built snow cave could maintain a temperature of 32 degrees Fahrenheit, even when the outside temperature was far below zero. It was also completely silent and dark, providing a welcome respite from the howling winds and the blinding glare of the sun on the snow. And it was incredibly strong. A well-built snow cave could support the weight of several feet of new snow, and it was almost completely impervious to the elements. The snow cave was not a shelter for the claustrophobic. It was a small, cramped space, and the thought of being buried alive was a constant concern, but it was a shelter that was perfectly adapted to its environment. It was a testament to the trapper's ability to find a solution to any problem, to create a home in even the most inhospitable of landscapes. It was a powerful reminder that in any survival situation, the most important resource is the land itself. Number 7. The Tipi and the Wall Tent. Not all trappers were lone wolves who disappeared into the wilderness for years at a time. Many were company men, part of large brigades that moved through the mountains, trapping and trading as they went. These men needed shelters that were portable, durable, and large enough to accommodate a group. For this, they turned to the Tipi and the Wall Tent, two iconic shelters of the American West. The Tipi, a design borrowed from the Plains Indians, was a masterpiece of engineering. It was a conical tent, made from a framework of long, straight poles and a covering of buffalo hides. The teepee was easy to pitch and strike, and it could be transported on horseback. It was also incredibly spacious and comfortable. The conical shape of the teepee was aerodynamic, and it could withstand the high winds of the plains. The teepee also had a unique system of ventilation with a smoke hole at the top that could be adjusted to draw smoke out of the lodge and to provide a steady flow of fresh air. The teepee was a home on the move, a symbol of the nomadic lifestyle of the Plains Indians and the trappers who adopted their ways. The wall tent was another popular choice, especially in the later years of the fur trade. It was a rectangular tent with vertical walls and a gabled roof. It was typically made of canvas, a durable and water-resistant material that was becoming more widely available. The wall tent was not as easy to transport as the teepee, but it offered more interior space and headroom. It was a favorite of the Hudson's Bay Company and other large fur trade operations, and it was a common sight at the annual rendezvous, the great gatherings of trappers and traders that were the social and economic hub of the mountain man's world. The teepee and the wall tent were a testament to the trapper's ability to adapt and to borrow from other cultures. They were a recognition that sometimes the best shelter was not the one you built from scratch, but the one you could carry with you. They were a symbol of the trapper's mobility, his freedom, and his ability to make a home wherever he went. Conclusion: the trappers of the American frontier were a different breed of men. They were tough, resourceful, and intimately familiar with the rhythms of the natural world. They were masters of survival, and their ability to build a shelter from the materials at hand was one of their most fundamental and important skills. From the simple lean-to the sturdy log cabin, from the humble dugout to the ingenious snow cave, the trappers of the 18th and 19th centuries were masters of improvised architecture. They could build a home in any environment, in any season, and in any conditions. Their shelters were a testament to their ingenuity, their resilience, and their deep understanding of the natural world. Today, these skills are all but forgotten. We live in a world of climate-controlled houses and instant gratification. We have lost our connection to the land, and we have lost the skills that our ancestors used to survive. But the lessons of the trappers are as relevant today as they were 200 years ago. They remind us that we are all capable of more than we think we are. They remind us that with a little knowledge, a little ingenuity, and a lot of hard work, we can overcome any challenge. And they remind us that the most important tool we have is our own mind. What do you think was the most ingenious of the trappers' shelters? Let me know in the comments below. And for more stories of survival against all odds, be sure to check out our video on the incredible journey of Shackleton and the crew of the Endurance. See you in the next episode.